All right. It's time to talk about breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is an interesting topic because it's easy to say one thing and say, yeah, it's as simple as ABC. In my case, not so simple. And especially when you're trying to feed two babies, and hopefully at the same time, if you can get to that point, there are a lot of challenges. Lots of challenges. So let me just go back a little bit. I had decided, am I showing too much boobs in this? I'm going to go for a... Okay, well, it is about breastfeeding. Okay, so breastfeeding. I had decided before the kids arrived that I would try to give it a shot. My mom had breastfed me and my brothers. My grandmother had done that before her. And yeah, there was a little bit of pressure, or pressure that I put on myself to try to do the same, rather. I'm at the hospital. The babies have arrived. My daughter's in the NICU because of low glucose levels. So in this case, it was kind of an easy transition because my son was with me and I was able to start breastfeeding with him. Luckily, my son took to it fairly quickly. Not so much my daughter, unfortunately. When we got home, I'd say for like the first 3 months, it was a trial and error. And I'll get into the details of that. But there was some trial and error. And then eventually, my daughter decided that she just didn't want to have anything to do with the boob. Frickin' frustrating. So then there was a combination of breastfeeding and pumping and bottle feeding. It was a mess, but somehow we managed because, well, they're now 2.5 years old. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. You are anyway. But don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to breastfeed. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So if your kid isn't taking any milk from you, you do have to feed them by some other means. It's kind of the law. So in my case, in the first few months, I breastfed them individually. And the plan was to eventually do it tandem. I had read enough about it. I had seen moms boast about how they could do it basically walking around with two babies on either boob. Not that I wanted to get to that point, but I did want to tandem feed because I felt like it would save some time. For today's demonstration, I am enlisting the help of Penguin and Puppy to be my twins. If any of this makes you uncomfortable, if you know me personally and you're like, oh my God, Inga's talking about her boobs a lot and it makes you feel weird, then, well, one, grow up, and two, just don't watch the video then if it bothers you. I'm going to talk about the tandem first. So this is how it worked. When I was at home and I was tandem feeding, I usually had someone with me. So that's key. Could I have done it on my own? I'm sure I could have, but this is my scenario, so that's the only thing that I can speak to. So what I would do is sit comfortably, usually on a bed or a couch, something that had a lot of surface area, and I would place 2 pillows on either side of me. I would get baby number 1 going, usually my son, because, again, he was easier to get started, and he could get the flow going. So I would get my son situated on one boob, and once I felt comfortable and I could feel that the milk was starting to, I was starting to produce the milk for him, I would call whoever was there with me, normally my husband or my mom, and they would bring baby number 2, my daughter, and I would fit her on the other boob and get her going and kind of sit back and relax. It was awesome because I had this moment with both of them and it saved a lot of time and money, but it was not like that from day one. So this is how I got to that point. When I was at the hospital, my daughter was in the NICU for a few days for low glucose levels. So because of that, I had more one-on-one time with my son. Maybe that's the reason why he breastfed more easily. I don't know, but I did have that time with him. And even then, it didn't come naturally to me. And from what I've heard and after speaking to all of my other girlfriends, it doesn't really come naturally to a lot of women. So don't feel like you're a freak if it isn't working for you on day one. Once I got my son going, what I was doing was paying visits to the NICU with my daughter and trying to give it a shot with her as well. It was a bit tougher with her. She would take, sometimes she wouldn't, but at the end of the day, the kid needs to feed, so we would bottle feed her with formula. So that happened, and maybe she got used to the formula, and that's the reason why she had a harder time adjusting to breastfeeding when we got home. I don't know, but that was the case. So what my husband would do was he would make the formula. I would breastfeed my son, because again, that was easy. I would always try with my daughter, and if she wouldn't take, which was like 50-60% of the time, we always had the formula ready. But because I wanted to keep my production levels up, so to speak, I pumped. And this is your friend right here. This is your friend. I, after breastfeeding my son, would then pump the other boob. And I kept filling up these bottles. And there was like a bunch of these in the fridge, but clearly marked Medela so that it would not be mistaken for coffee cream. That was quite a process, right? You know, you're getting comfortable to like breastfeed one kid, and then just after you're done that, you still have to take another like 10 minutes to pump the other boob, and then store that. So usually if I had a lot in storage in the fridge, I would just have my husband warm up a previous pump so that I could feed my daughter afterwards. So I did that for a good almost 5 to 6 months of doing that. So the pros of that was that I was still able to give both of my kids breast milk. Also, you know, if I was feeling too much pressure to pump, or I just wasn't feeling up for it, I would just formula feed them. So it was great. It was a really nice combination of the two. Around the 6-month mark, my daughter miraculously decided that she wanted to breastfeed. And it wasn't at home in a comfortable environment, you know, like where the setting was just perfect. It was on a train, a moving train from Toronto to Montreal, like that. It's as if she had forgotten the 5 to 6 months previous to that where it was like hell trying to feed her, and suddenly she just took. So for the next 6 months, I had a good thing going, and it was great. I was able to tandem feed, which I explained. It saved me way more time. I didn't have to really pump as much anymore, which was great. I still did every once in a while because I was paranoid that my daughter would somehow snap back out of it and decide not to breastfeed again. Well, luckily she didn't, and I was able to breastfeed them for the remaining 6 months before I started back at work. So there you go. You know, no one situation is the same. You may experience something similar to me or something vastly different. You may be one of those lucky women where breastfeeding just does come naturally and you have like this beautiful everyday moment with your child. Breastfeeding, give it a shot. I mean, they're there already. May as well. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. You can try to give it a shot again, or you can formula feed them, or you can pump milk and, you know, do it that way. But there's always a way around it. Just make sure you're feeding your kid, and you need to stay sane. That's also very important. I hope this helps out. If you have any questions or comments, please comment below, and I'll try to answer your questions as quickly as possible. No weird questions. Come on. Actual relatable questions, please. Yeah. Boobs. May your breastfeeding journey be a beautiful one. Ring. Should I stop now?